Welcome to the Wellbeing Specialist, and we've got a special show on for you tonight. We've got no other than himself, Dr. Ian Kaminskyj, who's going to talk to us all about the wonders of NLP. But first, I'll introduce myself. I'm Tony Neal, and Wellbeing is my business. I help individuals and business owners via customised retreats, workshops and consultations to maximise their feelings of vibrance, happiness, health and success. Now I'll just hand over to Ian to introduce himself.
Hello everyone. It's Dr. Ian Kaminskyj here from the Melbourne NLP Hypnosis Centre. And we actually use those two powerful techniques, NLP and hypnosis, to help our clients overcome challenges and excel. And Tony and I, we together are the Wellbeing Specialists. So what's our mission statement then? You want to tell everyone about our mission statement, Tony?
Let's do our mission statement. It is to educate and engage with our audience with lively discussions with experts to gain their valuable experiences, tips and benefits of their wellbeing knowledge and practices. On that note, we're going to talk about NLP. And NLP has been around for quite a while, and I think it's a really good modality to actually learn and to practice. I remember when I first took on NLP, I was a project manager, and I did it for two reasons. I did it to have better communications and also to build better relationships with my work team. And what about yourself, Ian? Why did you go into NLP?
Yeah, great question. I sort of began my NLP journey probably in the early 2000s, Tony, and it was all revolving around my quest for personal development, improvement, working at actually what made certain people successful and actually others, who just failed or just, couldn't get the results they wanted. So it's all just part of that journey, actually, Tony.
Yeah. So just tell the audience, what is NLP? What does it stand for? And what does it actually do?
Yeah, look, great question, Tony. In fact, people often don't even know what actually it stands for, so it's a great place to actually start. So N stands for neuro or mindset, L stands for linguistics or language, and P actually stands for patterns of behaviors or programs. And so it's really all about, helping change a person's neurology or their mindset using simply language. We don't use medications. We don't use physical force, like we don't use the whip or anything like that.
Yeah.
And typically we help them to either eliminate a negative pattern of behavior they have, let's just say, for example, drinking, smoking, or gambling, or actually help them improve their performance in a particular area, whether it might be things like sports or academics or maybe even sales.
And just tell the audience, how do you integrate NLP into your hypnosis? How do you do that?
Yeah, look, great question, Tony. The tools actually work really well together because both of them really work with the unconscious mind. And in fact, it's been said that, all learning, all behavior and change is unconscious. And so, when you work with tools specifically at the unconscious level, people can often, achieve changes in whether it's behaviors, habits, emotions, or even beliefs and values more quickly than just simply working only at the conscious level, using conventional therapies.
Well, perhaps you can just explain to the audience, what's the difference between conscious mind and unconscious mind?
Yeah, look, great question. Most of us, I think, are very familiar with our conscious mind. We use it, for example, to analyze a situation, to make decisions. Our short-term memory resides there, plus our willpower. which can be very, very strong, Tony, particularly if someone's particularly stubborn. Okay.
Yes.
You don't know any stubborn people now, do you?
Yes, we know lots.
But the interesting thing is, Tony, even if someone's really stubborn, right, has very strong willpower, they still have to remember to apply it. Because if they have a distraction, for example, what do? They just normally respond in some sort of automatic fashion. Now, these automatic responses, they're actually more under the control of the unconscious mind, Tony. Yeah. So for all the things that we're not normally conscious of, things like heart rate, breathing, our bodily functions, our emotions reside there, habits, long-term memory, and also we have a protection mechanism that protects us from both physical and emotional harm. Yeah. And in fact, it's interesting, Tony, that when people struggle to, say, get rid of a negative pattern of behavior they have, let's just say, for example, smoking, it's often because they have a incongruency or a bit of a conflict in a way, Tony, between the conscious and the unconscious minds. Often at a conscious level, they want to stop smoking. They've got all the reasons under the sun. They want to actually stop this filthy habit once and for all. But often there's actually something at an unconscious level that's causing them to actually, like a barrier, holding them back from making the change. So they actually end up having this sort of, this conflict inside their mind, where part of them has all the reasons why they should stop smoking, but they're still continuing for whatever reason. Yeah. And in fact, I often will actually ask my clients, can you see any benefits from continuing to smoke? And they all say, not even one, nothing, but they still smoke. Yeah. And so what we focus on not exclusively, but, a lot of the time with our two modalities, NLP and hypnosis, we actually focus on working with the unconscious mind and actually helping it to understand that for the client, there are no more benefits from them continuing to smoke or to drink or to gamble. And then once we, can achieve that, then the two parts of the mind then sort of work, together. They work in harmony, they're integrated, and that actually makes the quitting process for the client much, much easier.
So it seems to me as though we've got many minds. It's getting all the minds into alignment. Would you say that's correct?
That's exactly right. In fact, there's actually another part called the critical faculty, which I haven't even mentioned. And actually, I call this, in a colloquial way, the bullshit detector.
That's right. That's good.
And so, yes, it's a very nice way of putting it. And in fact, one of the things that it's really interesting actually about hypnosis, Tony, is that this bullshit detector actually is both a good thing, but can also be a bit of a barrier. It helps us, to be, I wouldn't say skeptical, but it helps us to, to be discerning, to question, to make sure that, everything looks correct. But it can, for some people, actually be a real barrier because it holds them back from trying really anything that might be of value to them. Yeah. And so, this lost my train of thought here, actually. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So what actually happens, what's really interesting here is that when someone actually goes into hypnosis, like into a very relaxed hypnotic state, one of the first things that actually happens, Tony, is that their actually critical faculty actually disappears. It goes on for a bit of a holiday. Yep. And the great thing about this is they become a lot more open to suggestions. They become a lot more creative, a lot more visual, and they're much easier thereby to work with because they've got nothing sort of stopping them from change, from changing their old patterns of behavior and being able to move forward. Yeah. So it's really interesting, this whole thing about, what happens under hypnosis, this process of relaxation gets someone into a, very relaxed state, but they, then sort of have this critical faculty drop off. and they then sort of remain in a very open, very creative, very visual state, they can be, very, very focused, and it helps them actually achieve the desired result, with just, stopping smoking and so on. But to go back to one of your earlier questions, though, so I haven't quite answered that yet. I've sort of been meandering around.
Been very interesting.
You asked a question about, how do you combine the two? And this is actually really, really interesting because, see, you can, for example, do NLP techniques without using hypnosis.
Yep.
However, it can be very beneficial to, in fact, get people into a hypnotic trance first before then doing the NLP. Yes. Because at that point, they're more open, they're visual, they can, clearly see things. And often the NLP process can be much easier to actually achieve with them when they're under trance than when they're actually not under trance. Not always, but it can help some people, especially, to sort of to do the NLP techniques more quickly and easily.
Can you tell the audience more about trances? Is that something that's natural, or is it something that a specialist needs to get their client in?
Yeah, look, great question, Tony. We actually go in and out of hypnotic trance up to 120 times a day.
Wow. Wow.
When we're daydreaming, when we're actually engrossed in a movie or a book, or even actually when we're doing anything on autopilot. For example, driving a car is a really good example of this. In fact, we use special terms, in fact, in our therapy. We talk about things like the eating trance or the drinking trance or the smoking trance. And what do we actually mean by this? Is a really interesting concept. Because I can relate to this myself, but I'm interested to see actually whether you can relate to this, Tony.
Yes.
I'll give you the example first, and then I'll explain to you how this relates to a trance, right? Or this term eating trance.
Yes.
Many of our behaviors are totally unconscious. They're sort of like they've become on autopilot. And an example that I can relate to very, very easily is if I'm working on my computer and I put a big bag of chips right next to me, my favorite, chips, whatever it happens to be, I know that within like quarter of an hour, half an hour, with this, while I'm typing away, punching away my computer, I will demolish that pack of chips.
That's right.
And it's because I'm totally eating unconsciously. I'm not actually thinking about what I'm eating. It's just going, while I'm actually, I'm thinking.
It's happened to me too. I think it happens to everybody.
So you can actually relate to this, right?
Yeah.
And this actually also happens with smoking, with drinking, and other bad patterns of behavior. Many people who drink excessively, they do so often without thought. They're not thinking about it. They just simply, pour a drink, just dab, they go before they even think about it. Here's my next one and third one and fourth one. And so a lot of the work that we do with our clients, where we actually start, in fact, Tony, is actually help them to become more consciously aware of what they are doing, and thereby just that awareness helps to understand these negative patterns of behavior that they've created over a long period of time that may have actually at some point when they were younger may have been very useful to them, but now no longer serve them moving forward. I'll give you another really great example of this. I'm working with a weight loss client at the moment, and she consumed, prior to seeing me, vast amounts of ice cream and vast amounts of soft drink. And we actually started working together. She began to realize, week by week, this was actually happening unconsciously. She would often, similar example to mine on the computer, she'd be watching TV, for example. She'd have like a big tub of ice cream next to her, and she'd just be, while she's watching, just consuming this ice cream without even really thinking or actually enjoying what she was actually doing. It's a great example. So we use these terms, eating trance, eating unconsciously while you're focusing on something else. Same with smoking trance. And also, for example, with drinking, people drink unconsciously. I saw a comment come up there. Did you pick up that comment?
Yeah, I did. It came from a person called John, and I think it was to do with an earlier comment that we've made. Yes. It was to say, I am stubborn, not persistent. We've got a comedian.
Whatever works for you, John, that's fine by me. Yeah, and so as I said, so one of the things that we do with our clients is to help them understand what are they doing unconsciously,
yep,
and what are these patterns of behavior that no longer serve them moving forward. And then so what we then do with the NLP and the hypnosis techniques is help them more easily break those old patterns of behavior, those old habits, as well as work on their mindset to actually make the process much easier for them.
Yep, I've got a question for you. In terms of, I've got a good one for you, right? It might turn out to be 10. You, with your work that you do, you'll have different types of clients. For instance, you might have a client who wants to excel themselves, or you might have another client who's got a well-being issue. For instance, they might be drinking or smoking. And is there any other type of categories of clients that you get or that NLP helps? So basically what I'm getting at is how does NLP help people in what sort of areas?
Great question. Basically, it's very similar to hypnosis. Can actually help probably in most areas where there's a mindset challenge. So, for example, fears and phobias, for example, I mentioned drinking less, stress and anxiety, for example, sugar addictions, depression, most areas that hypnosis can help with, so can actually NLP.
Yeah, for instance, we hear that like footballers and tennis players and cricketers do these sort of mindset tools to get the peak performance. So is that something that you do?
Yes, in fact, there's a very powerful technique in NLP called anchoring.
Yes.
And yes, and so it's very, very commonly used particularly in sports, but also can be used in business, to sort of get yourself into a state before like giving a presentation or doing a sales call to a client, or something where you need to really be at a very high level of ability and focus and state. And it's simply what it does is it's like it can be what's called a kinesthetic anchor. It can be an auditory one. It can be also what other types are there? Visual one, for example. But in fact, I'll give you an example of an anchor which we're all familiar with. This is all really easily. Tony, tell me what would be one of your favorite upbeat, boppy type songs that you love?
Feeling Groovy. I go back a long time, but that's a good one. Right? Feeling Groovy. Da 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 da.
Okay.
Remember that one?
Great. So let's look at this example. Now, let's just say, hypothetically, you're having a really bad day. Things aren't going your way. As the day goes on, you're just thinking, oh my God, when is this going to end? And, being upset and so on. And then suddenly, out of the blue, this is randomly, someone plays your favorite song, Feeling Groovy, right? And you hear it and you think, oh my goodness, how would you instantly change how you felt?
I'd start singing, I would. No, it would actually lift me. It's, I really love that song, and you could feel the change happening within yourself.
Exactly. So this is showing us that we all have the ability to change our state just like this. I'll give you another example, actually. This is a sort of a similar type of scenario. Let's just say, again, you're having a really bad day. Things aren't going too well. And then suddenly, out of the blue, you get a phone call from your best friend, Fred. You haven't seen him for 20 years. He says, Tony, I'm in Melbourne just for one day only. And I'd love to catch up, talk about old times, have some fun. How about we go out tonight and just really have a ball? How would your state change almost immediately?
you'd feel terrific. You'd want to do it, wouldn't you?
Exactly. So both of these examples show us how we can, with the right stimuli, change our states just like this. Now, in the second example, that was a purely random one. The call happened randomly. We responded. We felt really great, and off we actually went. But in the example with the music, though, this is an example of an anchor, an auditory anchor, which we can actually thereby use whenever we want to, whenever we can control this. For example, Tony, why couldn't you put that favorite song of yours on your mobile, or something you actually can use whenever you like, and thereby whenever you're feeling a bit down, or you want to just really just pep yourself up a bit during the day, pop it on, dance around for a couple of minutes.
Good one for you, Ian. I play a lot of tennis, and what would be a good anchor for me if I'm in a tight spot, my serve, it's at deuce, and I've got to win that game, and I need to serve 2 aces. Give me a good anchor for that.
Okay, great example. So you might. Okay, let me just finish off the previous one just before we go on to this example, right? So all I'm saying is that you can use the musical one to get you into a happier state whenever you need to. Okay, now go back to the tennis one. Okay, so what could you do here? You obviously can't just say, stop, guys. Let me just put my favorite song on, dance around for a little while. It's okay, now we can go back and do my thing, right? probably walk off the court we discussed. Okay, you can, for example, use kinesthetic ones. So the song actually was an auditory one, right?
Yep.
What you could do, though, is you could actually do something like the following. You could say, okay, let me actually, I'll give you another example. This is actually using the Pavlov's dogs example.
Yep.
Have you heard of the story about Pavlov's dogs?
No. If you want to tell us very briefly.
Enlighten you, yes. This guy actually owned a couple of dogs, and every time he fed them, he would ring a bell.
Yes.
Over and over and over again. And then he found, to his amazement, if he just rang the bell, they would start to automatically salivate. It was a stimulus response type of situation. So what we can do for you, let's do this again, a little bit of fun right now, okay, Tony? Yep. So just takes a couple of minutes. So I want you to we're going to use on one hand a finger and thumb. You just choose whichever hand you want, right?
Yep.
In fact, I was going to say. So, are you right-handed?
Yeah, I'm right-handed.
So you'd have your racket in your right hand, would you?
The right racket would be in the right hand, and my left hand would be free.
Yes, let's use our left hand. This is because we don't want to fuck up your serve with. Okay, so
I can serve left-handed. That would throw them off.
You throw the whole game off. Ball probably go miles in the wrong direction.
Go over the fence, right?
Okay, so let's go back to this example. So I want you just to close your eyes, Tony, and I want you to think of a time when you felt absolutely unstoppable, invincible. No matter what you did, you could do it exceptionally well. It was like the whole environment was just working all in your favor the whole day, right? Yep. So can you remember a time when that actually happened?
Yes.
Okay, let's look at one example now. So I want you just to go back to that time right now. I want you to feel what you felt, hear what you heard, see what you saw. And I want you just to totally experience that all over, like you're there right now, and tell me when you've got that. Now, I want you now to touch that finger and thumb together on your left hand. And as you do, I want you to feel those feelings now get even stronger, even more intense, of you just can do anything you put your mind to. You are invincible. You are unstoppable. Poor Tony's powerful Tony, right? Let them build a bit more. And then finally, as they start to subside, you can just let that finger and thumb go, separate. Now, we're going to do one more example, but you can do multiples after, because otherwise we're going to be here till midnight. We don't want to be here till midnight without.
We can teach everyone how to be super people. Right?
Let's do another example, though. I want you to close your eyes again.
Yep.
I want you to now think of a second time when you were unstoppable. Everything went your way. You just felt, you could do anything you wanted. Can you think of a time?
Yes.
a second time. I want you now to relive this second event as if you're there right now. Feel what you felt, hear what you heard, see what you saw. You're there in the moment. You start to sort of feel those feelings again. Bring that left hand finger and thumb together, and then just feel those feelings intensify, even stronger, even more powerful. You can do whatever you like, Tony, because you are unstoppable. Super Tony, we're going to call you now, okay? Feel them build up, build up, build up. They'll then start to slowly subside. You can then let the finger and thumb release. Okay, so we'll probably do a couple more, but just for time, what we would now do is we've sort of slowly instilling in you this anchor. So if you now close your eyes and now bring that finger and thumb together with a big deep breath in, you should now start to feel slowly but surely those feelings of power, that intensity, that unstoppability start to sort of slowly build up inside you. Tony, Super Tony, can do whatever he likes.
Yep, I can feel it.
Awesome. And then you can. Okay. Now, what we would normally do, we might probably do a couple more examples, but it's the same principle. We're going to go back through some previous life examples. We're invoking those types of feelings, right? We use that, reinforce the anchor. We do maybe sort of 3 or 4 of those. We would then actually then test it so that when we sort of come out, we just put them together, big deep breath in, feel those feelings just slowly come back to us very quickly, and then we'll release the anchor and off we would go back to normal. So what you would do then, Tony, when you're playing your next tennis match, is you would just, get ready for that serve, right? And you like when you maybe just put that finger and thumb together, and then that would just give you that sort of extra boost of unstoppability, power, whatever you needed at that time to then, win the game. I also like to actually ask my clients to reinforce it a couple of times a day, like leading up to a competition. So it becomes like a muscle that you're reinforcing constantly so that when you need it, it actually is there. Bang, you need it. You can also use other things like, for example, just words. You could just say, Super Tony.
Yes.
And that is your anchor. Bang, off you go. Or I actually like just to hum myself just a few phrases from a song. I, for example, really love the theme song from, I've just forgotten the name of that. I'll hum it to you. It goes, dun, 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 dun.
Mission Impossible.
That's the one. So you know it.
I do. You're back in my era.
So for me, that's a powerful auditory anchor. When I hum that to myself, I feel like I'm actually I can achieve the impossible. I'm Super Ian.
That's it. Super Ian, right?
This is a very simple but very powerful NLP technique, which you can use to give to any clients whenever they want to move from an unresourceful state, like when they're upset, when they're angry, they're stressed, whatever it might be, they want to move to a more, powerful or more relaxed or,
Ian, you're not going to believe this. The audience have come up with this comment. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's Super Tony and Ian.
I think we've begun following here. We've done it. I like it. Fantastic. But just before we move on to the next thing, though, Tony, do not underestimate actually the power of being able to control your state. It is a really powerful skill to have.
Yes.
And once you can master this skill, to be able to invoke it whenever you need to is so useful. So, good one for our audience to practice and, really be able to sort of master that process.
Now, that was great. I felt great doing that.
So we want you to tell us on the next live, actually, how you went with your tennis match.
Yes, that'll be on our next show. I'll let you know, right? But the thing is, we've got lockdown at the moment, so I can't play. Right? But I can imagine that. I can imagine.
Yes, exactly.
I'm going to imagine that I'm in the Australian Open in the final. It's 2 sets all. I'm love 40 down, and I need to win my serve, right, to win the trophy.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
We can all dream. All right, then, Ian, I've got another question for you. I believe there's a number of principles in NLP. I think it's about 7. Can you tell me what those principles of success are?
Yeah. So this actually all relates to, achieving the goals that we actually set ourselves. In fact, one of the aspects of NLP is all about achieving excellence.
Yes.
And in fact, being able to define what we would like to achieve and actually then going about actually achieving it. So there's actually 7 key principles of success actually in NLP. And the very first one is actually to be really crystal clear what exactly that you actually want to achieve. In fact, we actually use that. Have you heard of this before, Tony, the SMARTS formula?
Yes, I have.
So what does that actually mean to you? SMARTS.
It means it's been a specific, measurable goal. So it's attainable and realistic, and there's a target date.
Exactly right. So we use actually the SMARTS formula to get a lot of clarity on what exactly we want to achieve. Because if we don't have clarity, it becomes very hard for us to know when we actually achieve that particular goal. So once I've got this defined, this is step number 1. Step number 2, of course, is then to take massive action. Just do whatever it needs, or whatever you can, given the time resources you have, to focus on that to sort of get things moving.
Yep.
That's principle number 2. And that can often, mean, creating a plan. I want to lose, let's just say, for example, I want to lose, let's say, some weight. That might be my overall goal. Well, I might say, I want to actually lose, say, 5 kilograms within the next, say, 6 weeks. And that to get now more specific. So what could then my plan be? Well, for example, I might join a gym. I might, for example, start to look at, eating better, for example. Or I might actually, seek the services of a weight loss hypnotherapist that she helped me with my mindset to help me achieve that particular outcome. So that might be my plan. Number 3 actually then is to monitor your progress. How am I going actually each week? Maybe I have to, use some scales, maybe get feedback from others. How are my clothes fitting, and so on and so on. So I need to sort of, step number 3 is to constantly monitor my progress to see how I'm actually progressing. Step number 4 is what we call the law of requisite variety, or introducing some flexibility, such that if we're not heading in the right direction, in fact, if I'm putting on weight rather than losing it, rather than just sort of jumping off off a building and saying no more, is to realize, I need to be flexible. We want to sort of move away, I suppose, Tony, from what's called the definition of insanity.
Yes.
Have you heard that term before?
I have.
What does that mean to you?
That means repeating the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Exactly right. So we need to move away from that. Don't be scared to change tack. Don't be scared to try something different, because there's no point continuing on, with what you're doing before. Number 5 actually relates to time. Being very clear on, in fact, there's 2 aspects of time. Number 1 is how much time are you going to allocate to achieve your goal? What's like your time frame?
Yep.
Actually, tied in that actually is how much time are you willing to allocate to that goal on a daily basis?
Yes.
And clearly, the more time you have on a daily basis to devote to it, of course, you can sort of shorten the time frame for its achievement. Yep. Number 6 actually is rapport. What's this all about? Often we need to work with others when we're, working towards achieving our goal. We might, for example, have a personal trainer at the gym to help us, with our goal. Working with our hypnotherapist to help, with our mindset, for example. Maybe a nutritionist to help us, with the foods that we're eating. And so we need to be able to then have, ways to be able to effectively, utilize those relationships and build very strong rapport with the people that we work with, to thereby maximum the benefit and value from that relationship in terms of helping us with our goal achievement. And number 7 then is to operate from a physiology and psychology of excellence. What does this actually mean? Well, it means that one thing we can guarantee. Let me ask you this question, Tony.
Yep.
What's one thing we can guarantee when we start the journey of achieving our goal?
Well, once you've started, at least you're moving in the right direction.
Yep, that's correct, right? But what you can guarantee, there will be challenges, obstacles.
Oh, that's right. You're going to have obstacles and things like that in front of you.
Yep. That is guaranteed. And so we have to thereby be using the psychology and physiology of excellence. We have to anticipate there will be problems. And as I mentioned to you before, are you better served to handle those if you're in a positive upbeat state or in a negative down state?
Oh, it's in positive, of course. Yes.
Exactly. So this is actually saying step 7 is to stay in that positive state in both your mind and body as much as you possibly can.
Yep.
In fact, have a ritual to get you into that. Use the anchors we talked about before. Always do whatever you can to get back into that positive state as much as you can, because of course then you can achieve or get through or break through obstacles, problems that occur, whenever they do pop their ugly head.
And one important thing is, if you've got obstacles and challenges, it's always good to ask for help and try not to do it all yourself. That's another good key learning.
Yep,
Get
this
the
is also
right people to help you, right? Be resourceful.
This is also where the rapport becomes very valuable.
Yes.
And the funny thing actually is that people generally are more than happy to help, aren't they, Tony?
They are. They love being part of it.
Yeah. And they feel great because there's someone actually asking them for their opinion, and they sort of feel important. And so it's amazing how people you ask for help feel great because they're actually being asked to sort of assist. And as I said, it feels great for them to be able to assist someone else and along their journey as well. So 7 principles, if you apply them correctly, you actually can achieve almost any goal you set yourself in your life, Tony.
Well, I'm just looking at the time, and we've sort of overrun a bit, but it's been so interesting that we could go all night. But we need to honour our timelines.
We actually have to do a second one actually, because we've got a lot still we can talk about. So maybe we'll just stop there.
I think we need to have a second one, and we could even have a third one. The way things are going, right? Because it's so interesting, and I'd like to thank you for all that. I'll just let you have a final say. If there's one message that you could get out to the audience, what would it be?
Well, I suppose the thing that I really like about both NLP and hypnosis is they apply to all areas of your life. Yep. And so what I would just sort of leave people with the thought is that it's one of those tools or technologies that once you learn it, you can apply it everywhere, whether it's in your personal life, with your kids, with your partner, your family members, whether it's in a professional setting, with you're working with your colleagues, or you mentioned, Tony, working with groups or heading groups, with your health. All areas of your life can actually benefit from these tools. So I suppose that's why I love them so much, because they are so useful. I use them every single day in some capacity, either for myself or for my clients. So that's where the main thing I wanted to sort of mention.
And in my takeaway, NLP is so important. I wish that I had learned NLP when I was knee-high to a grasshopper when I was a kid. And it begs the question, why isn't NLP taught at schools? You could imagine if you've got all these mind tools and things like that, how it would benefit society.
Oh, exactly.
Look at what's actually happened. It's the well-being. It's to get the mental illness and all those things could be sorted out.
Let me ask you the question, Tony. Do you think it's more important to learn Pythagoras' theorem, or do you think it's more important to learn some of these mindset techniques?
Well, if I just go back to one of our previous speakers that we had, remember I flashed this one up. And tell me, Ian, is any one of those ones that could not be solved by NLP?
Well, I think all of them can be helped with
Yes, that's right.
NLP, huge amounts.
Absolutely. Every one of those ones there, NLP could be used as a useful tool to reduce them. That's my opinion. And, you know, we use NLP in our retreats. And I think it's just a part of life, isn't it? It's just to get the right sort of mindset. And it's, you know, I work in business and things like that. It's to get the right mindset in business as well. It's everywhere, you know, at the family, you know, with your children, and it's such an important tool to have.
So my question for you, Tony, would be: when did you last use Pythagoras' rule?
Probably many, many, many decades ago. I'm starting to go back, right?
So we learn Pythagoras at school, but we don't learn NLP, and we use NLP daily, but we don't use Pythagoras. So work that one out.
Yes, no, that's too difficult. On that note, we better say goodbye. But before we say goodbye, Ian is going to interview me, because I'm going to be hopefully at the retreat. Depends on our Premier Dan, whether or not he's still got lockdown. But even if he's got the lockdown, I am so determined that I want to tell you about what a retreat is and how it can benefit you. So that show is going to be on February the 22nd. That's next week, not far away. So one way or the other, Ian is going to be grilling me under the microscope and asking me all these probing questions about why do we need to go to retreats and how does it benefit you. So I reckon that's going to be a great show, and also we might even reveal some of the NLP things that we do.
Something to look forward to, Tony. We won't sleep tonight now, between now and the 22nd.
I'm too excited. Now, I'm just trying to find, if you want to contact us, by all means, jump on our Facebook, and here's how you find us. It's on this one here. We're the Wellbeing Specialists. Down the bottom there is our Facebook link. So read that and jump on it. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any comments, or if there's any topics that you'd love Ian and myself to do, we're only too happy to entertain those ideas. So on that note, Ian and I bid you farewell and look after yourself.
And just finally, if people got any questions, if they're watching the replay, they can just simply put that in the comments below the actual recording, and we'll happily actually answer them for you. But again, thanks so much for attending today or watching the recording, and we look forward to catching up with you again on the 22nd. We're going to be actually putting Tony under the microscope, under the spotlight at his retreat.
Okay. See you later, everyone.
See you later.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.